I'm Scott Kilby, editor of Photoshop User Magazine, and welcome to Adobe Photoshop Photo Retouching Techniques. In the next 60 minutes, we're going to look at some great tips for repairing, retouching, and restoring images the quickest and easiest way possible. There's a lot of fun stuff in this video, so let's get started. All right, before we jump into retouching images, I first want to mention that we're using the Macintosh version of Photoshop, which is exactly identical to the Windows version of Photoshop. So there'll be no problem whether you're using Macintosh or Windows. However, the Macintosh keyboard is slightly different than the keyboard on a PC. So I'll have to give you keyboard shortcuts for both. So anytime you hear me give a keyboard shortcut on this video, I'm going to have to give you the Macintosh keyboard shortcut and the Windows keyboard shortcut. But other than that, everything's exactly the same, so let's get right into it. First, we're going to look at a thing that we call digital plastic surgery. A lot of times we get requests from people that want to remove the signs of aging. They want to remove wrinkles or any other things that might take away from their appearance, make them look a little older. So what we're going to do is we're going to show you a quick trick using quick mask mode to get rid of those signs of aging very easily and quickly. Now, before we get started, the first thing we're going to have to do is we're going to have to make a change to the preference in quick mask mode. The quick mask button is actually found at the bottom of your palette all the way down here, right under your color pickers. These are the quick mask icons. Now, if you double click on the quick mask icon, it brings up the quick mask options. By default, it's set to masked areas. I'm going to ask that you change it to selected areas. It just makes it easier to do this particular trick if you can see the selected areas rather than a masked area, especially if you're brand new to masking and things. It makes it a little tougher. So we'll start with selected areas. Color indicates selected areas, click OK, and we're ready to start. Now, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to actually switch to quick mask mode. We're in normal mode right now. To switch to quick mask mode, I'm going to give you a keyboard shortcut. Just press the letter Q, as in quick mask, and you'll switch to quick mask mode. Now, you'll know that you're in quick mask mode because you'll see the word quick mask appear up here. Watch. Okay, so now you're in quick mask mode. Nothing really changes at this point. What we're going to do is we're going to grab a paintbrush, and we're going to grab a smaller size brush in this. You kind of want a brush that is near the size of the wrinkles and things that you want to paint away. Now, I guess we should discuss this right off the bat, is the brushes palette and how to work with the brushes palette. The brushes palette, when you choose any painting tool, we're going to be using a lot of painting tools in this video. Anytime you choose a painting tool, your currently selected brush appears up here in the options bar. Now, if you want to change brush sizes, there's a lot of different things you can do. First, you can click on the downward facing triangle, and up pops a list of your currently loaded brushes. Okay, we can do that. I'm going to give you a keyboard shortcut that I think is actually better than that. First, I'll show you the standard keyboard shortcut. Then I'm going to show you just a little quick change that makes it much, much easier. Right now, when I want to change brush sizes, and if you look here, you have hard-edged brushes going from small to large, and soft-edged brushes going from smaller to larger. And these numbers indicate how large in pixels the brushes are. This is a 21 pixel brush. This is a 200 pixel brush. Now, here's what we're going to do. Rather than using this pop-up here, we're going to hold Shift-Control on our keyboard. Okay, Shift-Control and click inside your image. Shift-Control, click, and up pops up your brush menu. Okay, it's going to pop up there and just sit there. So now you can choose which brush you want. Okay, well, I had kind of a big brush. I'll choose a smaller brush. Then to make this dialog box go away, you can either hit Enter, or you can kind of click off someplace else, or you can click inside your image. Okay? Now, I'm going to give you a way that I think is even better. Rather than doing that, let's use Shift Control, click, hold, and drag, go right to the brush you want, and then just let go. So it's all one movement. It's not 1, 2, 3, let's see, hit the Enter key on your keyboard, 4. It's not a 4-step process every time. It's just one movement. Shift Control, click, choose the brush you want, and then it goes away automatically. That's a much quicker way to choose brushes. Now, once you've selected the kind of the brush you want, whether you've selected a harder or soft brush, sometimes it's actually quicker to use a keyboard shortcut than to make that palette pop up someplace else. For example, I've got a 35 pixel soft edge brush. I want just a little smaller. I'm going to use the left and right bracket keys on my keyboard to resize the brushes. So I'm going to hit the left bracket key just to shrink it down a little bit. There we go. That's a little smaller than I needed, so I'm going to hit the right bracket key, which makes it larger. Left bracket key makes it smaller. Right bracket key makes it larger. It basically, take a look up here in the palette while I'm doing this. You can see it. jumping up in size. And also the little cursor reflects how big the brush is. Now, we're in quick mask mode, right? What I'm going to do is I'm going to carefully paint over the areas that I feel that need to be addressed. Now, to remove the signs of aging. Now, you notice I'm painting in red. All right, you're not actually painting on your image. You're in quick mask mode, so you're actually painting a mask. So don't worry about you're not damaging your image. This is just showing you the areas that will become a selection later on. Okay, so don't let that concern you. At this point, we're just painting over these areas. Now, you're going to be tempted to do this. Don't do that. Just keep going over the areas. Now, here's the key to this technique. It's a very simple technique, but the key to it is don't paint over areas that have well-defined edges. You don't want to paint over the her nose or the edges of her nose, the lips, the bridge of the nose. You don't want to paint over her eyebrows, any place that's, or her eyes, any place that's well-defined. You want to stay in kind of smooth areas. So you want to avoid her chin. And I'm going to shrink down to a smaller brush here. Hit the left bracket key just to get that little area right there, but I don't really want to touch her chin. If you touch her chin, I think I actually did touch her chin a little bit. If you touch her chin, then it's going to be kind of a dead giveaway. So kind of go over those areas that you think need a little bit of retouching. Now, once you've done that and you've got the areas defined, you're going to press the letter Q again. Now, we press the letter Q to enter quick mask. You also press the letter Q to leave quick mask. Let's press the letter Q again. And we've left quick mask. You can see the areas that are going to be worked on. Now, I want to put these areas up on their own layer. So let's open the layers palette. The quickest way to open the layers palette is to press the keyboard shortcut F7 on your keyboard. Just the F7. There you go. Pops up the layers palette. What I want to do is I want to take this selection and put it up on its own layer. The keyboard shortcut to take a selection and put it on its own layer is Command J. Now on Windows it would be Control J. So for Macintosh, Command J. For Windows, Control J. Puts that selection up on its own layer. You never want to look at that selection because it's disgusting. Okay? But here's the selection up here. Now, I want to smooth out that look. So what we're going to do is we're going to go under the filter menu, under blur, and choose Gaussian blur. Now let me move the blur over here into the middle. Here's what you're doing. Here's the effect that you're applying to the image. I want to increase the radius. Now this is a low resolution image. Okay, it's 72 dpi, so I'm going to run it up to maybe 4 pixels. Now on a high resolution image, you may need to use a higher amount. This is something you're going to have to turn the preview on and adjust to make sure it's enough softening. But when I click OK, watch the image and you'll see the effect of the blurring. Watch. Okay, pretty dramatic difference. Here's before and after. And what I'm doing there is I'm hitting undo and redo, just so you can see before the filter was applied and afterwards the filter was applied. Now, if you apply this effect and you say, wow, I went a little too far, I actually took out a little bit too much, you can control the amount of the effect using the opacity slider right up here. So if it appears like you've over-blurred or over-softened a bit, you can take that out right here and kind of control that effect. There we're bringing a little bit back there. We dropped it by 30%. You can start seeing some of the little wrinkle areas coming back. And of course, the lower you go, the more will come back. If you go all the way down to 0, it's completely back. So you have complete control over this effect after it's been applied. So that's just a quickie to get us started, a little digital plastic surgery just to get us into it. Let's go on to another real common. That's a pretty common request we get. Here's another real common one. This has especially become common because of digital photography. And digital photography, using digital photos, as great as it is, seems to be the ultimate producer of the red eye effect. Let me blow this up so you can see it. There we go. You can see it's not as easy to see on your monitor as it will be, on this TV screen here as it will be on your monitor. But there's a definite red eye effect going on here. When I zoom out, it's a lot harder to see. I can see it really clearly on my monitor, but on your TV screen you won't be able to see it nearly as well. But what we're going to do is we're going to not only remove the red eye that appeared in this photo, but it's important not to just remove red eye and give the poor kid black eye. What we want to do is remove the red eye and then recolor the eye, okay? So this is a two-step process. Step one is, let's zoom way in. It's looking a little pixelated here, I know, because we've zoomed so far and we've zoomed in 400%. What I want to do is I want to select the red area of the eye. Now, this is one of the few times I'm going to use the magic wand tool. I'm not a big fan of the magic wand tool. In fact, I'm going to lower the tolerance a little to 20. The tolerance setting is how far out, how many colors out it's going to select when I click. And I just have pretty much a small area of color here, so I'm going to click 20, hold the shift key and click a couple more times. Now, if you click and it doesn't select enough, deselect and increase the tolerance number. And that seemed like it did a pretty good job, actually. Now, I have one eye selected. I need to select the other eye, so to add to this selection, you're going to have to hold the Shift key. And holding Shift lets you add to the selection. So I'm going to hold Shift, scroll over to the other eye, and click again. Now, by holding Shift, that stays selected, and then this eye also gets selected. So there we go. We've pretty much selected the area that's giving us a problem, the red eye area. And I'm going to move, rather than trying to move with these scroll bars, since I'm zoomed in, here's a great tip. Anytime you're zoomed in, it's great if you just press the space bar and then it switches you to the grabber hand. It's a lot easier to move around this way than it is to try to find this, and plus this moves in such large jumps sometimes. It's easier just to move this, get right where you want. Particularly helpful when you're zoomed in. Okay? Hold the space bar and you switch to the grabber hand. Now, the first step is we want to remove most of the red from this eye. We're going to use a keyboard shortcut, and then all this does is it just removes color from the selected area. The keyboard shortcut is Shift-Command-U. On PC it would be Shift-Control-U. Okay? Shift-Command-U on Macintosh, Shift-Control-U on PC, and that's going to basically remove most of the red. If you miss little areas, it's really not going to show up, so you don't have to worry about it too much. Now I'm going to go and grab the airbrush tool. I'm going to make sure my pressure setting is kind of low. The default pressure setting for the airbrush tool is 50%, and I don't think that gives you enough control. I usually lower it to 20 or 25%. And we're just going to paint a couple of strokes with black as our foreground color. Just paint a couple of quick strokes over the eye, okay? Just a couple of quick strokes, just a couple of quickies. I don't want to make his eye black. I just kind of want it to be dark gray. It may look a little black on your monitor. On mine it looks kind of dark gray. All right, and then we're going to deselect. So if you back off, you can see you completely remove the red eye effect. You don't really see any red eye whatsoever. But again, I don't want to leave it at that. I want to not only remove the red eye, but then go and recolor it. Let's blow this back up again. And here's what we're going to do. Let me close the layers palette for just a second. I'm just going to draw with the lasso tool. Switch to the lasso tool. I'm going to draw a very loose selection around this. So a very loose selection right outside the edges. There we go. There's one eye. Now I need to select the other eye, so I'm going to have to hold the Shift key again and draw another loose selection. Do not try to make this a precise selection. Make it pretty loose. And then what I want to do is I'm going to use the same keyboard shortcut we used just a moment ago in digital plastic surgery. We're going to use Command-J, as in Juliet, or Control-J on a PC to put those up on their own layer. Let's make the layers palette visible. Here it is. We're going to move those two eyes up to their own layer by pressing Command-J. We'll take a look at that layer. There you go. So there's the two eyes. And what we're going to do is, let's make the background visible. What we're going to do is we're going to just colorize that whole area. Now, to add color, we're going to go under the Image menu, under Adjust, and choose Hue and Saturation. Okay? Hue and Saturation. This dialog box appears, the Hue and Saturation dialog box. Now, if the eyes were already in color, and we wanted to change their color, you would just move the hue slider. But we need to actually colorize these eyes. So we're going to click on the checkbox marked Colorize. We're going to click on that. Once we do that, it's going to let us colorize that entire area. Now I'm going to increase the saturation so you can really see it, and we're going to move to kind of a blue. All right, it's going to be a little more saturated than I think it should be, but I really want you to see the effect. Okay, so we're going to recolorize his eyes as blue and click OK. Now, it looks like you got pretty much a mess here. Let's zoom out and you can see it's not pretty. However, all we have to do now, what we have to do now is just very, very simple. Grab the eraser tool and just erase the parts you don't want colorized. Just get all this over here. I mean, this is an easy erase. And same thing over here. This is one of the easiest things to erase. You don't have to be, it's not a real critical. There you go. And now you've recolorized his eyes. Now, if the color appears to be too intense, you have complete control over this in the same way you had control over the digital plastic surgery effect. You can just lower the opacity. If it becomes too brightly blue, you can just back it off a little bit. Okay, so it's up to you. And again, it probably seems a little darker. It looks really blue on my monitor. It'll look really blue on your monitor, but on the TV screen it might look a little bit too dark. So I'm going to bring it back up a little bit just to kind of emphasize the blue. Okay, so that's a quick way to not only remove red eye, and you're going to see a lot of this, especially with digital cameras these days. You'll be doing a lot of this kind of repair, and how to replace the eye with a realistic eye color. Now let's look at some basic retouching techniques. I really haven't talked too much about cloning and things like that, and I think when people think about retouching, they're always thinking about using the rubber stamp tool or the cloning tool. Here's a situation. I'm going to kind of close the layers palette so we can see where we've got happy kid and mean kid beside each other. What we're going to do is I want the focus to be on them and maybe the bookcase behind them, but there's some distracting things in this picture, and you have to decide whether you want to keep them or not. I'm going to remove this globe. Number one, I don't like the shadow that the globe is casting back here, and really the globe is really background. These kids, what they're doing is the focus, not what's happening with this globe. And there's some just distracting things on top of the bookcase. I want to remove them. And this is a typical thing that you'll do in photo retouching, especially when you have objects that are not intruding in the image, but a part of the image, and you feel like it's taking away from the focal point. The focal point is clearly these two boys. So we're going to remove this area. Now I could just go and use the rubber stamp tool. I'll show you first how the rubber stamp tool works, then we'll actually do the project. The rubber stamp tool works this way. First I'm going to choose a larger brush. Use the same keyboard shortcut I showed you. Shift Control, click and drag, and there's my brush. Okay? Here's how the rubber stamp or the cloning tool works. First you're going to tell Photoshop, this is what I want to copy, or this is what I want to clone. And you do that by holding the Option key and clicking. When you hold the Option key, watch your cursor, changes to the little stamp, and click. That just locked in to Photoshop. That's what I want to clone. Now if you're on a PC, it's going to be Alt, click, defines what they call the sample point. Then you're going to move your cursor someplace else, all right, and then click and start painting. And when you start painting, what's going to paint here is exactly what you clicked on over here. And you'll notice you have two cursors. A crosshair cursor will appear right where you started, showing this is what I'm painting. The circular cursor will show this is where I'm painting. And the best way to show you is just do it, watch. Okay, so you can see pretty clearly. See the two cursors? One's on him, and then the big one's when you're painting. That's cloning. Okay, and you can use this for cloning, or you can use it for removing things, and that's what we're going to do here. But that's basically simply how it works. Option click to define what you're cloning, then move to another area and start painting. On PC, Alt click to define what you're cloning, then move to another area. Let's undo that. All right, now what I want to do is I want to clone this wall over this area. Now I could do that. I could just Option click or Alt click on a PC and start painting, but I run the risk of deleting him. So before we do a task like this where there's something we want to keep, what I recommend doing is just a very simple technique called isolation. I'm going to isolate the area where I'll be working so I don't have to worry about accidentally erasing this kid. So we're going to switch to the lasso tool. Now, you can use any selection tool you want. A lot of people who are familiar with the pen tool would prefer to use that. You can use any selection tool you want. In this case, I'm just going to use a lasso tool just for time's sake because it's easy to do here on the video. I'm going to click and hold, and I'm just going to draw a selection right down this little boy's arm. Now, it's not going to be the greatest selection in the world because I'm just kind of rushing through it. Down his arm. All right, and now I'm going to kind of go outside the image. Watch, with the lasso tool, you can actually go outside the image and then come back in. Okay? Now, I've defined to Photoshop. That actually wasn't too bad a selection. I got lucky, believe me. It usually doesn't work like that. Usually I have to go back and do a little repairs and kind of fix things up, so I got pretty lucky. What I want to do is I want to erase the globe. So I told Photoshop I'm only working on this globe area. Once you make a selection, you can only paint or affect inside the selected area. There is no chance while this selection's on of me accidentally erasing him, his arm, the bookcase, anything else. I'm trapped in this area, which is exactly what I wanted. I've isolated the area I want to work in. Now I can switch to the rubber stamp tool. I'm going to actually choose a little smaller brush. There we go. And I'm going to click. I don't want to click too far away from where I'm at. I want to click pretty close to where I'm at. Option click, or on PC Alt click, and I'm going to start painting. And as I paint, you notice that it hits the little boy's arm and doesn't paint over it because I'm trapped inside that area. Now, right now, because it's kind of a gray background, it's very, very even, it doesn't look too bad. But most of the time you won't be painting on just a solid, nice colored background. A lot of times there'll be texture or a sky behind you or grass behind you or whatever. Because of that, you don't really want to use this tool like you're whitewashing a fence. You don't want to generally paint up and down because you could pick up the smallest little speck or a pattern and it'll start to appear over and over again. So there's a technique that you want to get used to. You're going to have to sample over and over again. The real way to use this tool to make your retouchings look realistic is to sample. We'll call option clicking sampling. Okay, if you hear me alt click or option click, that's sample, paint a little, dab a little, option click, dab a little, option click, dab a little. On PC, alt click, dab a little, alt click. Now I can come in down here, alt click, dab a little, alt click, dab a little. Now watch what happens. If I alt click over here and I start to paint, and it starts to paint, watch the crosshair up here, watch. It starts to paint, his shirt starts to repeat. Okay, so you do want to make sure that crosshair stays in the area you want to clone. You don't want it to actually go into his shirt, or it'll paint his shirt again. Okay, so let's undo that. Sample, 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 and I've pretty much gotten rid of the globe. Let's just see if there's anything. Whoops, let's see if there's anything over here. Instead of that little pop-up, now that it came up, we might as well mention it, are the color modes for your brushes. Anytime you want to switch color modes, brushes have color modes just like layers do. It determines how your brush interacts with the layers below it. And if you want to access that anytime, the shortcut is Control click. Or on PC, you would just use the right click on your mouse button, just right click to bring that up. In this case, I didn't need it, it just popped up, so thought I might tell you what it is. Okay, back to our story. So here we've eliminated that globe. Let's deselect by pressing Command D, or on PC, Control D, and you can see we saved the boy. Now, I did miss a little bit of area right on his arm there. My selection wasn't quite tight enough, and I missed a little bit, so I'm going to get rid of that. Now, because his arm is not soft and fuzzy, I'm going to have to choose a hard-edged brush. So let me go Shift-Control-Click, choose a hard-edged brush. I'm going to sample right near his arm, move in here, and just get rid of that little layer there that was missing. And it looks like there's a little on his elbow too. Option click, or on PC, alt click. There we go, just get kind of rid of a little bit of that area right there. Okay, again, I switched to a hard edge brush because his arm is hard edged, it's not soft edged. There's one more little area we could retouch right up here in the top of the bookcase. I'm going to blow this up a little bit. Incidentally, while you see me zooming in and out of images today, the keyboard shortcut I'm using, it's my favorite for zooming in and out, is Command plus to zoom in and Command minus to zoom out. On PC, Control plus sign and Control minus sign to zoom back out. Okay, let me zoom in a little bit. What I want to do is I'm going to select this area up here. Since it's straight lines, I don't want to try to make a perfectly straight line with a lasso tool. Instead, click and hold and choose the polygonal lasso tool. The polygonal lasso tool lets you create straight lines. Just click someplace and it'll let you draw a straight line. Then click once to change direction. Go straight up, click again. I'm going to go straight across, maybe to over here. Click, come down, click, and then come straight across. All right, now it's going to be tough to see on the video, but a little circle appends. When you get back to where you started, a little circle appears. I can see it here, but it's going to be probably tough to see on your screen. That says you've come full circle. Now, I've isolated that area. Now I can get my rubber stamp tool. I'm going to choose a soft edge because it's all protected in there. So I can choose a nice soft edge brush. It's totally protected, 35 pixels, we'll try that. Option click, paint a little away. Option click, paint a little away. I have to be careful that I don't paint too far, because if I paint too far, what happens is it starts painting, watch. See the cursor? The cursor, the crosshair is about to start painting the kid's head into that spot. So you don't want that, obviously. You're going to sample, move a little bit, sample, move a little bit, sample, move a little bit, sample, and move a little bit. And let's see if that pretty much did it. That pretty much got the background out. So that's kind of an introduction on how to use the rubber stamp tool for cloning and for removing unwanted objects in your images. And you can see it's very, very easy. Once you get the hang of that resampling and remembering not to whitewash, your stuff will look great without any problem. Let's look at a little more detailed version of that. I'm going to open up an image. Here we go. In this case, what I want to do, and this is going to be a little tougher one, is I want to do two things. I want to remove the braces here, okay? It's kind of a neat shot of this kid, but I'm sure he probably doesn't want his braces to be front and center in this image. So we're going to remove the braces, and we're going to brighten the teeth. Okay, we're going to remove the braces and brighten the teeth. So we're going to do both of those. First, let's zoom in a little further. There we go. And I'm going to choose a very, very small brush. Let's get the rubber stamp tool, cloning tool, and get a very small brush. What I'm going to do is I'm going to choose a small area of the tooth that does not have braces and paint over the areas that do have braces. We'll remove these 4 pieces right here, then we'll go and brighten the teeth. Now, I'm not going to really isolate this. I mean, I guess I could if I was really concerned about it, but I'm going to be using such a small brush. If I was using a large brush, I would be very concerned about this. But I'm using such a tiny brush that I'm really not that concerned about it. So let's Option click and just get rid of this, start getting rid of part of this brace. I went a little too far there. Option click and just dab. Option click and dab. Now every time you see, and again on PC Alt click, every time you see that little rubber stamp icon, that's me sampling again and moving to a different area. The reason I'm doing that again is so it looks more realistic. So it doesn't look like I'm just whitewashing a fence and picking up little patterns and things that might appear in the teeth themselves. Okay, over here, same thing. Option click and dab. I'm clicking nearby. The reason why I click nearby is because it may not look like it, but a lot of times there are subtle differences between even the top of the tooth and the bottom of the tooth. So you want to click pretty nearby so you're picking up colors that are actually right where you want to be. If you sometimes, maybe, I'll give you an example. Let's say that I click on this tooth and say, well, that's open, I'll go over here and retouch. Sometimes, look at that, it really picked up, well, I got a little lip in there too. Let's see, you can see it really is an obvious retouch. It's a darker color. So you don't want to do that. You want to get an area right near where you're cloning. So a lot of times you're going to want to clone, let's just undo those last 2 little steps there. There you go. You want to do an area right near. We're getting pretty good on this one. All right, let's get this tooth over here. Same thing again. Now I got to tell you, this is a little tedious. Anytime you're doing this much retouching, it can get a little tedious, so just bear with me. I'm also kind of doing this a little quicker than you'll probably wind up doing it. I'm doing it quick just to show you the technique. When you try this, you're going to use a little more care than I am to make your touches a little more realistic, and you're going to take that extra step to make it look right. And over here, now this one's kind of touchy because this part of his teeth is a little bit in shadow, so it's gonna be a little harder to see what you're doing. There we go, and I'm just gonna actually take a little of this tooth over here. So we're in the ballpark. It's not especially these teeth over here, it's not a fabulous retouch. Let's see if I can get rid of that. There we go. Okay, now we've got our basic retouch. Let's get the lasso tool and make a selection around the teeth that we want to adjust, okay? And again, this isn't going to be, let me try that again. This isn't going to be a real precise selection. I'm going to just kind of make a reasonable selection of the teeth we want to, actually we'll get that tooth too. Okay, this is not pretty. May I try this again? Thank you. Here we go. There we go. Much better. Okay. And I think that's a tooth there. We'll grab this one here too. Okay, now, I want to brighten these teeth as well. In fact, I think I'm going to add this other tooth in here if you don't mind. To add to an existing selection, you hold the Shift key. We already learned that, so I'm going to hold the Shift, add that extra tooth in there. What the heck, let's go for the whole mouth. There we go. There's one little baby tooth hanging out over there. Okay, now, I want to retouch this. What I'm concerned about here when I retouch this is that you'll see a very hard edge where I brighten these teeth. So to soften the edges, okay, the edge of the retouch, a lot of times when you're working on a selected area, we're going to want to just soften the blend between the teeth and anything else in the image. To do that, to affect just the edges, go into the Select menu and choose Feather. Feather only affects the edges. We're going to add like a 2-pixel feather. You would use a higher amount on high-res images. Okay, on a high-res image, you would use probably a higher amount. I'm just going to use 2 pixels just to kind of soften the transition of the change we're going to make. Now, to really see the change, I want to hide. See the selection? All right, I need the selection in place, right? Because I just want to adjust his teeth. Without that, I would brighten the whole image. I only want to adjust the selected area. But I don't really want to see the selected area while I'm working. In other words, I'm going to show you a little tip that just makes working within a selection much easier. All you're going to do is go into the View menu and just click on Show Extras. Okay, now Show Extras is already selected. If you choose Command H or on PC Control H, it hides the selection. Make no mistake about it, those teeth are still selected. You've just hidden the marching ants, the little selection border, from view. Now, to lighten up his teeth, I'm going to back off a little. Lighten up his teeth. We're going to go to Hue and Saturation. It's kind of a large dialog box. I'm going to slide it out of the way. And we're just going to affect the lightness. Okay? Just going to drag the lightness slider to the right, like this, and watch the image as I drag it to the right. Just lightens his teeth up. Okay? And you can decide how light to make them. There's, you're in charge of quality control for lightness of teeth. Okay? Make sure preview's on, or you won't be able to see the lightness as you drag it. Let's drag a little bit more. Okay, so here's before, and here's after. So as you can see, let me back off a little bit more. It's a tremendous difference there, because number one, the braces are gone. Number two, his teeth are nice and bright and sparkling, rather than the kind of grayish tone that they had here. That may be a little bit too intense. People that know him may go, hey, dude, you don't have teeth like that. But you're going to have to make the call on that, whether you want it to be that way or not. But certainly, especially in doing, portraits for, for your house and from trips and things, you want your family and all to look as best as possible. Especially if anything you do like for high school photos and things like that. This would be a case where you go in there and retouch as well. Now, you can also notice there's a couple of freckles and things like that on his face. If I went to retouch them right now, it wouldn't work. Okay, I would go and try to just get rid of these little dots. I can't. It absolutely will not work. Do you know why? Because you still have a selection in place. Remember, we hid it. It's still there. So you would go and try cloning. This doesn't work. This doesn't work. It doesn't work because you got to show it again, and then Command D or Control D, deselect. Now you could go grab a very small brush and get rid of little blemishes like this. Option click and just paint right over it. Oops, let's do a better job than that. I'm going to make a little larger brush. Choose this side of his nose to option click and get rid of it. That was better. There we go. And then over here, same thing. If you want to get rid of freckles and things, just option click. Same thing on the nose, option click. But look, I kind of dragged it. It looks kind of yicky. Let's bring up the size of the brush a little bit. Option click on there we go, and kind of get rid of that. There, option click. And if you click in it, you pick up a bad shadow or a bad pixel or something, just move to a different area. Try it again. And again, here's why you want to be close. See how this side of his face is kind of in shadows? If I go over here and say, well, here's a nice open patch of skin, now I'll paint over here, it's very, very obvious. So keep that in mind. I mentioned that earlier, but that's a pretty good example. I also want to take a second to talk about feathering. I mentioned the feathering of the teeth and why that's so important. I want to open up another image if I can. And I'm not going to actually retouch this image, but I want to show you why that feathering can be so important in a retouch. All right, here's an image where, if you look over here, the little boy, he's not too badly exposed. I mean, he needs a little adjustment, but it's not too bad. He looks okay. Excuse me. The sister looks okay. Okay, little sister looks okay. Baby sister's kind of bleached out. Like the image is damaged. It's looking good over here, and as it gets over in this corner, it's kind of damaged. Well, I mean, I could make a selection. I could take the lasso tool and kind of make a selection, and we'll select her as well, and maybe her arm area. Okay, and make a selection. This is doing this very quickly. You would take more care. And let's just say that I go to levels to adjust these tones. So I go to levels, and I want to bring back some detail in this area. So I would slide the shadow slider to this direction to darken it up, okay? Well, here's the problem. When I deselect, you can see, look at the hard edge right there. You can actually see like a hard edge cutting through her arm. It's very hard edged. It's very just deliberate. It's a dead giveaway this has been retouched. Let's undo that, okay? I'm going to undo that. And instead, before I do the levels, I'm going to add a feather. I'm going to add like a 10 pixel feather to soften it. Same exact selection, a pretty poor selection actually. Same selection, but I use feathering to soften the edges. Now I'm going to hide that selection, so it's still in place, but it's not visible. I'm going to bring up levels. Now watch when I make the adjustment. Okay? There's no longer, where's the hard edge? It's gone. The hard edge is completely gone because I feathered those edges out. Look, remember the edge that was going through her arm? The edge that was going through here? Completely gone. Now it completely fades in nicely and looks much, much better. So that's another reason why I just kind of want to really reiterate that point, why feathering can be so important in retouching, because it's going to smooth the area between the edge of your selection and the rest of the images. It can be very, very important. Just a little quick thing I wanted to show you there. Next we're going to look at what is probably a retouching dream come true, because we're going to look at an image that looks like it's going to be really bad, but it's really much easier to fix than you think. This is a picture taken on midnight, New Year's Eve, just after midnight. There you go. And one of his eyes is kind of half closed, the other one's open. Well, I want to repair that. Okay, I want to fix that. Well, the retouching dream here is, anytime you've got a good body part and a bad body part, you're just going to replace the bad body part with the good body part. Okay? He's got an open eye, half closed eye. We're definitely going to use the open eye to fix this. Okay? So let's make just a loose selection around the good eye. And to make it blend better, make the edges blend better, feather. Just a soft feather, maybe 3 pixels. Okay? Now, I need to get that eye up on its own layer, so let's open the Layers palette and press Command-J, or on PC, Control-J, same keyboard shortcut we've been using a number of times today to put that eye up on its own layer by itself. Now, you're going to be tempted, don't do this, move over here. Now, you could just drag his eye over and say, okay, there, I fixed it. Well, now you've got 2 left eyes, so you don't want to do that. Now, here's a couple things you can do to help. First thing is you can lower the opacity a little bit, so you can see where the other eye was. Okay, so you can kind of position it in the right spot, rather than just guessing and dragging it straight over. Look at the other eye. If you lower the opacity, you can kind of see where the other eye was. Okay? And then bring it back up. Now, here's the other thing is, to keep from having 2 left eyes, you're going to have to flip that eye. Okay, you're going to have to actually flip it. It's very easy to do. You're going to press Command-T, or on PC, Control-T, to bring up the Free Transform dialog box. And then I need to flip it horizontally. To get to flip horizontal, here's a shortcut. Hold the Control key, or on PC, right-click, right inside the bounding box, and watch. Up pops a list of the things you can do. I need to flip horizontal. So choose Flip Horizontal, and it flips it around. Now we're going to have to kind of rotate it into place. Okay, kind of do a little rotation. And to rotate, just move your cursor outside the box and you can rotate, okay? So rotate it into place, and then click Return or Enter to lock in your change. Okay? And let's just kind of position it where we want it. Hey, Spinky, hey, how you doing? Okay, back to our retouch already in progress. Once you've got that in place, let's flatten the image. We're going to just flatten this down so it becomes part of the final image. And then we're going to do, one thing you're going to have to do is you're going to have to make this eye look a little different than this eye. Not the eye itself, but the area around it, so it doesn't look so copy and pasted. Now, the feathering helped somewhat, but if you really want to get it back right, we're going to use the history brush. Now, the history brush, by default, paints back to what the image looked like when you first opened it. So if I were to grab the history brush and just paint over that eye, what it's going to do is just paint in the bad eye. Let me blow up the thing. Okay, now I'm going to paint with it. It's just going to paint in the closed eye, so that does us no good whatsoever. But what you can do is just paint around the eye to where what you really get was what was around that eye before we brought the other eye over. Okay, it's very subtle. Okay, because his eyes look pretty much the same. They don't look identical though. So by going in here, it kind of lets us retouch that a little bit to where it looks like it did before we brought the new eye over. And I think you can see pretty much a little bit of retouching and we're there. So that's kind of a dream come true. Anytime you see a good body part and then a bad body part, you can just flip them over and moved. I just want to show you 2 little quickies to wrap up this section. These are just things that you're going to run into from time to time, and they can be kind of maddening if you don't know the way around them. One is this, is when you're working on an image, and this is a multi-layered image. We've got a clock on one layer, and a type, and a clipboard, shadow, and then the background layer. Okay. In this case, I want to do some cloning. Okay. I want to clone the little boy onto the face of the clock. All right. Shouldn't be a big deal. Go up to clock layer. Okay. So I want to clone the little boy. I just make the brush the size I want. Right. Option click. Move to the clock and start painting. Right. No problem. It won't work. It absolutely just won't happen. Why not? It's always worked before. Here's the problem. When you have a multiple layer document, by default, Photoshop will only let you clone from the layer you're on to the same layer. So if I want to move the clock, option click on the clock and paint it someplace else, no problem. It'll let you do it. However, let me undo that. If I want to paint the little boy, he's on a different layer. He's down here on the background layer. So what you're going to want to do is turn on a little option up here in the options bar. Use all layers. That basically treats the image if it's flattened. So now you option click on the little boy's face, go over here, and you can paint it right in. Again, this is just one of those things that if you didn't know, might drive you kind of crazy, might be kind of frustrating for you, so I thought I want to tell you because you will run into it for sure. And again, use all layers is off by default. You're going to have to go turn it on. Okay? So that's use all layers. That's one. Another thing I want to let you know, a lot of people don't realize this. When it comes to retouching, you can, let me just go down a little bit. Clone from one open image to another open image. So if you've got this image, you can, as long as it's open, at the same time, you can option click and say, I want to paint her eyes, click on this image into this image, and she'll paint right in. You're cloning from one open image to another. Okay? So you can do that as long as both images, that's the only thing you have to worry about, is both images are open at the same time. Now we're going to look at using layers tricks for retouching images and making the whole process even easier. Here's a great trick that really takes mostly use of the history palette in helping us to repair the scratches and the dust and the junk on this image in the background. Step one is we're going to go under the filter menu, under noise, and choose dust and scratches. Now it's going to bring up the dust and scratches dialog box, and what you're going to do is you're going to look at your image and try to move the radius and threshold high enough, mostly radius, to where you can't really see the dust and scratches anymore. And unfortunately, you'll notice that also the whole image looks pretty rotten. Don't let that throw you. Just worry about the dust and scratches. If you see the dust and scratches go away, you're there. Now, go to your history palette. Now, I happen to have mine here in the layers palette. If yours isn't showing, you can go under the window menu and choose show history. Okay? When it comes up, you'll see that this thing keeps track of everything that you've done. Well, so far, we've done two things. I open the image, then I apply dust and scratches. Now, you see a little icon of a brush? That tells me if I were to grab the history brush and start painting, it's going to paint back in the original. Okay? Well, I don't want to do that. I don't want to paint back in the original. I'm trying to fix the original. I want to return to what it looked like when I opened it, but I want to paint from dust and scratches. So I'm going to click right there. Okay, so the image looks like it did when I opened it, but when I use the history brush, it's going to paint after I ran dust and scratches. Now, if I just start painting right now, it's just going to be a blurry mess like you saw. Instead, we're going to change the brush's paint mode from normal to lighten. And when we do that, when we paint over, I'm going to shrink the brush size a little bit. We paint over these things in the background, they just disappear. Okay? Shrink the brush a little bit more, and these things just disappear. Just go right over them, and they are gone. This is a trick Russell Brown from Adobe actually came up with, and it's a slick one. Just gets rid of that. Now, you've gotten rid of those dark spots. To get rid of the other ones, switch to darken, and go to the areas that need to be darkened, and just paint right over them, and they are gone. So this is a great way to make a quick retouch on areas like this that just need fixing. And now you can work on, getting the overall tone and things right because you've spent so little time getting rid of all the scratches and dust, okay? Very, very simple technique, but a lot of fun. We'll also look at a variation on that in just a moment. First, I'm going to show you a layers trick. We'll open up this image. Here's an image that's greatly underexposed here. It's really, really light. There's not much detail. I'm going to hide the layers. Not much detail. It's very, very light. And I want a quick way to bring back enough detail that I could start to go retouch this image. Well, here's the trick. What you're going to do, let's stretch out the layers palette. make a copy of that layer. Just drag it straight to the layers, new layer icon. We're going to switch the layers mode from normal to multiply, which is like kind of putting a see-through copy of your image right on top, and watch what it does to your image. Now, when I'm done with this, when I choose multiply, I'm not done. I just started, but watch the difference. Pretty dramatic. We're going to make a couple of more copies, and as you make copies, every copy you make is already automatically in multiply mode, and you can see how all of a sudden the detail has come back. I mean, look now, you can see the cobblestone street. When I started, let me go back to where I started, let's show you. Let me just Option click or Alt click on that eyeball to hide all the other ones. There's where we started. Okay? Option click to bring them all back, or Alt click to bring them all back on a PC. And look, cobblestone street, you can see the posters on the walls. I mean, the details come back tremendously. Now you can flatten the image and start your retouch. Okay? Now, that works great on an image where the overall image is completely blown out. Sometimes you're going to want a little more control, a little better layer of control, and this is a great trick for doing that. Here's an image where, well, it's a little dark on this side, but then it gets really light and blown out on this side. So here's the trick. We're going to start by creating a new layer. So choose New Layer from the little pop-up menu here. So that way it brings up the New Layer dialog box. Before we do anything, we're going to change the layer's mode from normal to overlay. Now when we do that, when we choose overlay mode, all of a sudden this appears. Fill with overlay, neutral color, 50% gray. What it's going to do, it's going to create a new layer that is filled with 50% gray. However, in overlay mode, that layer will disappear, allowing you to paint directly on the image. It kind of lets you like dodge and burn. And you'll see how it's better if I just show you than trying to explain it. This is grayed out all the time until you choose overlay mode. Then you choose fill with overlay, and look in the layers palette. It made a big gray layer. Here's what it looks like, big gray layer. But because it's in overlay mode, you don't see it. Now you can paint on it. Let's grab a paintbrush, regular old paintbrush. We'll choose a bigger size brush, okay? And we're going to lower the opacity a little bit. We'll lower the opacity to maybe 50%. Now, when I click and paint on this all gray layer, it's going to start bringing back detail in my image. All right, and what's nice is I got a lot of control here, because if I paint over once it's not dark enough, I can click and paint again and it comes in even darker. Okay, so I can control which sides of the image that I want to work on. Okay, that's while I'm painting in black. Okay, notice black is my foreground color. Let me hide the layers palette, go in here. If it needs to be extra dark on an area, I go over it and click again, and it paints the next level of darkness. So you have a pretty good control over how dark your image is going to be. And you're painting on the image where you want to paint. So you got a lot of control here. If you go into an area and it actually becomes too dark, you've actually overpainted an area, I'm clicking, it keeps getting darker and darker. You decide, wow, I really got a little out of control there. Switch to white. Now, white seems to paint much more abruptly. Okay, so undo that. This is where you want to lower your opacity down to maybe 15 or 20% and kind of bring it back gradually. Again, click again to make it whiter. Okay, so if you do go too far, it's like using the dodge and burn tools. Photoshop has dodge and burn tools. Whoops, those are the sharpen tools. Dodge and burn tools are over here. The dodge tool and the burn tool for making it lighter and darker respectively. This is a way to do that and have a little more control than you would any other way. So that's just a quickie on that. Let me show you what you've done though. Take a look over here. You notice you haven't painted on the image. You've painted on this layer. That's what your layer looks like. That's what you were doing. But when you put it in that overlay mode, it just works wonders on your image, giving you a whole new way to retouch your images and have a little control, more than you would any other way. I'm going to do one more for you in this section. And this one is, we're going to open up an image that's just a mess. It's got all kinds of problems. Some of them are going to be really easy to fix, like the tears in the carpet and stuff. Anytime it's a little pattern like this that's not real well defined, you can option click and just get rid of that stuff, no problem. Option click and get rid of this stuff. This stuff's easy to get rid of. You can fix carpeting and things like that in literally in just seconds. Okay, so that's not a big deal. Where you're going to have a problem in this image is up here in the wallpaper. It's just a mess. So what we're going to do is do a little trick here with layers. We're going to make a selection of a clean part of the wallpaper. I'm going to try to fix the wallpaper. Make a clean selection, go up into the edit menu and choose define pattern. Now we can name this, wallpaper or whatever you want. And it puts that as a repeating pattern into your memory. Now, we're going to grab the lasso tool, and I'm going to make a selection around the part of the wallpaper that I want to retouch. And we'll just kind of go up this way. There we go. Now you're going to take more care when you do this. I'm doing it really quickly. There we go. I'm going to hold the Shift key and or the Option key. The Option key takes away from a selection. I got a little overly sloppy here, so I'm going to fix that real quick. There we go. Just kind of get these areas. I could fix that there too. And get this. All right, there we go. I'm holding the Shift key to bring all those areas back. Now, to repair this really quickly, let's get that too. Go into the Fill menu. And we're going to fill, instead of with the foreground color, which would just fill it with basically white, which we don't want. Instead, we're going to fill with the pattern we just saved. Right there, fill with pattern. Click on the pattern pop-up menu, it'll be the last one in the bunch is the one we saved. If you want to see the name, if you're not sure which one, you can always choose to view by name, text only, and choose it that way. The one we chose was wallpaper. Okay, so you can choose either one. And we'll click OK. And when I do, watch what happens. Watch the wall over there when I click OK. Bang. Cleans it right up. So there's just a little quickie trick for repairing things like that that are going to be repeating patterns or backgrounds or things that'll make it easy for you. Let's close this image and look at one more. Actually, we'll just get one more in here that I think will, it's another layers trick for retouching. Here's a shot. It's a great shot, and of course all great shots are taken in bad lighting. Here we have, her dress is in the sun. This is all in the sun, and of course they're in the shadows. Take a look at the whole thing there in the shadows. Here's a trick for maintaining the background, because what's going to happen is if you try to lighten this up, if you were to go levels, try to lighten this up, what's going to happen is it's just going to lighten everything up. Her dress is going to turn into just a white glow. It's just going to be kind of a mess, and their faces still aren't that great yet. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to go and we're going to forget about the background. We're not going to worry about that. All I'm going to worry about is what their faces look like. Okay, his shirt and this part here, and I'm not going to worry about the background. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We'll go ahead and move the midtones up a little bit, move the highlights up a little bit. I'm not worried about what the background looks like. I'm just kind of brightening it up there, okay? So now they look okay. Of course, the dress is completely blown out. There's no detail. It's all, you can't even see where this stops and the dress begins. It's just a mess. That's okay, I don't care, because we're going to use a history palette trick. Go to the history palette. Here's where we opened it. But I want to paint from where after my levels adjustment. So I'm not going to mess up the wall back there. I'm not going to mess up any of her dress. I'm going to grab the history brush, set it to normal, and then I'm going to paint them in from the state where I cleaned it up. So that way I can kind of bring in her dress here. There we go. Now that's a bit much in her hair. Okay, and we'll just get him as well. So you can kind of bring them back. I'm over-exaggerating how far I should probably bring them back for purposes of the tape, but I think you get the idea here, is that you can fix them up pretty darn well. Bring them back. There we go. And then when you get to her veil, we're probably going to lower the opacity a little bit so it's not so much. There we go, so her veil, there we go. Just brings a little bit of that back and right in there. There we go. So that they pretty much come out of the shadows, but the rest of the image is still pretty much safe. I got a little sloppy there, but I think you can get the idea here that that's a great way to bring them back and save what would have been a ruined picture. Now let's look at some other useful photo retouching tricks. Here's a quick trick for fixing really, really jaggy line art. Here's a scan of line art. You can see it's just tremendously jaggy. It's just a mess. What we're going to do to fix this real quickly is 2 steps. Step 1 is we're going to blur it until, we're going to use a Gaussian blur and blur it until we don't see the jaggy edges anymore. Now that's step 1. Somewhere up in here. Let's see if that's enough. That's close. Then step 2 is we're going to go to levels. Okay? What we're going to do is we're going to take the sliders and drag them toward the middle until they're almost touching. It's 2 steps. 1 and 2. And it just removes that incredibly jaggy mess. Okay? So that's just a quickie for fixing jaggy jaggy line art, and you'll run into that quite a bit. Next, this is another little quick trick. It's to introduce you to a tool a lot of people don't use, but can be very, very helpful in retouching. And first we'll look at the sharpen tool. The sharpen tool is located right here, right catty corner from the gradient, and it says sharpen tool, so it's pretty easy to find. The pressure setting by default is 50%. I usually lower it down to about 25, something in that area. And basically what it lets you do is as you paint over an area, it sharpens that area. I'm going to sharpen this jewelry up just by clicking and holding and painting over it. Sharpening this jewelry, click and hold. Sharpen this jewelry, click and hold. It just kind of sharpens up these areas. Also a little click in the eyes too sometimes can help sharpen up that. Here's some jewelry back there. I'll sharpen that up as well. Okay, the longer you hold the mouse down, of course, because it's pressure sensitive, or it has sensitivity. It's not pressure sensitive unless you're using like a Wacom tablet. You can control the sensitivity a little bit with a mouse. Much better with a tablet. There we go, but it makes that jewelry just pop out. Also, we're going to also look at over here the dodge and burn tools. The dodge tool lightens, the burn tool darkens. We're going to go in here and just add a little, we're going to darken up the shadows. Again, lower your exposure 25%. 50% setting is just a little too high. We're just going to kind of increase the shadows in here. So you can just go in here and make it a little more dramatic if you wish. If she stayed up too late last night, you can, there you go. Just make it more dramatic. So you can kind of go in here and just darken up those areas. So the dodge and burning tool allow you to light and darken like you would in a traditional photographic darkroom. Lastly, here's a quick trick, and this one's you'll run into more often than you think, is what do you do when you have an image that's too big to fit in your scanner? Well, we're going to do not only fixing an image that's too big to fit in your scanner, but how to perfectly straighten a scan. So we're going to scan it in two parts. We scan the left side of the image, straighten it, scan the right side of the image, straighten it, and then put them together. To straightening is simple. What you're going to do is you're going to grab the measure tool, okay? Grab the measure tool, drag it along the edge that's crooked, all right, where it should be straight, right there, okay? Then once you've got that in place, go to the image menu, under rotate canvas and choose arbitrary. When you click OK, perfectly straightens the image. Now you can just select this and choose crop if you wish, or you can actually use the crop tool. I'm going to open up the right side of the image, do the exact same thing, measure tool along the top edge, grab the measure tool, move along the top edge to straighten it, arbitrary, click OK, and then crop it down to size. Now, I want to put the two together. It's absolutely simple. There's one little trick you need to know. There's always a trick, isn't it? Well, here's the trick you need to know. First, we'll go to the original image. We'll add some canvas size. Add a little canvas size, add to the width. We're going to bring the other image on top of it, and here's the trick. All you have to do is lower the opacity, bring up this, lower the opacity, and key in on somebody. We're going to key on this little girl right here. Watch, as you put her over her, you can lock her into place. Just hold make sure you've got the move tool, take your hands off the keyboard, and tighten it up right there with the arrow keys. Once that's done, raise it up, and the image is back together, and you're set. Well, that's it. I hope the techniques you've learned in this video will make your photo retouching tasks easier and more fun. If you're interested in learning more about Adobe Photoshop, check out my other training videos at www.photoshopvideos.com. Also, I just finished writing a new book called Photoshop Photo Retouching Secrets, and you can find more about it at www.photoretouchingsecrets.com. I'm Scott Kilby. Thanks for watching.